Hey there, everyone. It's GG Sober Sun. Ooh, that's bright. I think I'm gonna step back here out of the sun a little bit more. Not that I mind the sun. It's just a little hard to read when it's so bright. October 10th. When new members come into my AA group, do I make a special effort to make them feel at home? Do I put myself out to listen to them even if their ideas of AA are vague? Do I make a habit to talk to all new members myself, or do I often leave that to someone else? I may not be able to help them, but then again, it may be something that I might say, that would put them on the right track. When I see any members sitting alone, do I put myself out to be nice to them? Or do I stay among my own special group of friends and leave them out in the cold? Are all new AAs my responsibility? And yes, I love that responsibility statement as well. You know, when anyone, anywhere reaches out for help, I want the hand of AA to always be there, and for that I am responsible. And that's just a reminder, and it's something that we say at the end of all our every treatment committee meeting that I attend, and it's good. It's good to be reminded. And I know, and I probably shared this before, but at my first AA meeting, well, it wasn't my first. It was my first back at my home station. I got sober when I was on temporary assignment in Turkey, and those waves are kicking up pretty high. And I'll go ahead and share my first AA meeting for keeps. I walked in a little bit late, and the chairperson said, "Can we help you?" I said, "Is this AA?" And he's, there's probably a handful of people, 5 or 6. I don't recall it being a huge meeting, obviously. But he said, "Are you an alcoholic?" I said, "Well, I'm trying not to be." And he said, "Either you are or you aren't." I said, "I guess I wouldn't be here if I didn't think I was." And he said, "Well, welcome. Come on in and have a seat." And I've never heard a story like that before for somebody's first AA meeting. But it made me make that decision right then and there, And when I went to my first AA meeting back at my home station in England, I walked in a little bit late. It's kind of a theme here, I guess. But it was difficult to find because it was in a building that was in the middle of a complex of buildings on the base. And anyway, I walked in a little bit late, and somebody was reading something, probably how it works or what have you. And the gentleman that was sitting closest to the door with his back to me turned around, and he didn't know me from Adam. But when he stuck out his hand and we shook hands, I immediately felt super welcome, which is such a small gesture to make someone feel welcome. And it made a huge difference. And it left an impression, obviously, that I continued to practice myself when I see a newcomer. But here's the thing. you kind of have to go to regular meetings. You know, have a home group, know who the usual attendees are, so that you can spot a newcomer. And even if they don't appear to be newcomers, because that's the other thing. You get used to thinking that all newcomers are all beat up. Most of them are, right? But occasionally somebody will walk in all buttoned down and looking good. They don't look like they're have come to the end of themselves and trying to beat their liquor, But even if that's the case, don't draw a conclusion. Anybody that you don't know, anybody that I don't know, I have learned to stick out my hand and welcome them. So that's just me, But here's a couple of other things. One time I was, again, a little bit late to a meeting at my home group. And we meet in a clubhouse. And I was walking in the parking lot, and there was a young female who looked lost. I said, "Are you looking for a meeting?" And she goes, "Yeah, do they have AA meetings here?" I said, "Yeah, come on in." And I can't recall if she asked me a couple of questions, but I may have introduced myself, kind of thing, and just to make her feel welcome. And during the meeting, because then my home group makes all newcomers meetings when we have somebody that's their first AA meeting, we make it a step one meeting, right? Well, one of the ladies that has been sober for a long time was saying, "Hey, stick with the women. The women will save your ass. The men will try to grab your ass." And I was like, what the heck? Is that the first impression this young woman's gonna get? Yeah, she was attractive as well, And then after the meeting, she came up to me and said, "Thank you for being so welcoming." And I was like, "Yeah, whatever." And I was like, I didn't actually say that. I said, "You're welcome. That's just how we roll," kind of thing. But that was so awkward, But I get the old timer female's point, right? I have actually used, sort of given newcomer women a little bit more attention in the past, sort of with underlying undertones of flirtation, to encourage them to keep coming back. It's not the right motivation, for sure. I have grown wiser over the years. I'm admitting my faults in this case. I wouldn't encourage that. And in fact, the older I get, the more I realize how motivated I was by that type of behavior, And when I was married, it kind of got me into a very terrible situation, really, because I got to talking with a woman after a meeting when I was in England this last time, and found out that she was a poet and I had written some poetry, and we were exchanging poems via email, and my wife came across it, and she had written a poem about her husband that my ex-wife interpreted that she wrote it about me, or to me, or for me. and that was not a good deal. You see, my former spouse had a hard time with letting go of, where I was for hours a week. You know what I mean? That might have been her control issues and jealousy issues, but and that may come up in your recovery if you're married when you get sober, or even after you get sober. You know what I mean? Because, not to digress from the point, but of of being kind to newcomers, but people, I think, either draw conclusions or don't think deeply enough about what it means to be the spouse of a recovering or recovered alcoholic, however you want to call it, and that it requires a tremendous amount of time and effort in order to stay sober and serene. And I curtailed a lot of my meetings, and or just maybe for a long period of my early recovery didn't go to meetings at all. And I would not recommend it. And I think the only reason I survived that without drinking was that I had a close relationship to the God of my understanding, or misunderstanding, however you want to look at it. Because I believe the God of the universe wants me to be involved with AA now, after several hard knocks of not going to meetings and not being involved with AA. So I would just say that yes, it's important to reach out to newcomers, and there are way more men than there are women. If you look around when a new female comes into a meeting and there are no other females there, don't hesitate to welcome them. But keep it professional. Don't try to be flirty, single, married, or otherwise. Keep it above board. And if you don't think you're capable of doing that, then don't say anything, right? But like I said, if there's no other females and you know you can be cool about it, then by all means, go ahead and stick out your hand and just say welcome. Glad you're here. But generally speaking, men stick with men in terms of what the welcome wagon, and women stick with women in that regard. And I know things these days are a lot more confused about gender and all that stuff, but just as a general rule, you play the other stuff as you see fit. Meditation for the day. You are God's servant. Serve him cheerfully and readily. Nobody likes a servant who avoids extra work, who complains about being called from one task to do one less enjoyable. A master would feel that he was being ill-served by such a servant. But is that not how you so often serve God? View your day's work in this light. Try to do your day's work the way you believe God wants you to do it, never shirking any responsibility, and often going out of your way to be of service. Yeah, that's really interesting, because to be of service, I really don't like doing paperwork. I really don't like doing paperwork. And when yesterday I had to do what's called a site survey to replace a bunch of security cameras at a place in Panama City that had a lightning strike the last storm that came through, and it knocked out all of their security cameras. And I knew that these types of site surveys to see what is in place and what needs to be replaced, it requires a lot of paperwork and due diligence that often doesn't get paid, right? So I only get paid for the time I'm on the site. And if I'm, I guess I could have just sat there and pounded out the paperwork on site, right? But I don't have, anyway, I decided I needed to get back down the road because I had another possible job about 2-hour drive, 3-hour drive in the opposite direction in Pensacola. So I left as soon as I had taken enough photos and made a few notes. But the majority of the paperwork side, quote unquote paperwork, it's all digital really, is I prefer to do at home, on my PC where I got big screens. I've got multiple screens so I can spread everything out, kind of thing. But when I can feel myself avoiding that kind of stuff, because by the time I got home I was ready for bed almost. I was ready to watch, put on a movie, shift my brain into neutral, and just prepare for bedtime. But I knew if I don't do it now, this evening, I don't know when I'm going to get it done tomorrow. The other things is my taxes. These things I try to avoid. I don't try. I just end up, if I don't make it a huge priority, the can gets kicked down the road. And that's where, that 10th step process of when these crop up, selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, or fear, we ask God at once to remove them. We talk to somebody about it, make amends if necessary, and then we turn our thoughts towards someone we can help. And in this case, with the job, that was my job, is to help others, to be of service to others. So I wanted to be diligent about that. So I asked God for help. And it doesn't really require me to get on my knees in order to do that. It just requires me to be surrendered to my will. Say, okay, I want to sit and veg out for the rest of the day, but I know I got work to do. So I saddled up to the computer desk and knocked it out. I continued to do it a little bit more work this morning to close it out. And like I said, I moved the needle a little bit on my taxes as well, which is important, to do my due diligence on that as well. So, having said all of that, and almost forgetting that I didn't do the prayer for the day, and we may just close out with that. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may be a good servant. I pray that I may be willing to go out of my way to be of service. I went way out of my way yesterday. It was like I think it was a 2-hour trip to Panama City. And I was willing to go another 3 hours to finish out that other work order, but it looked like there had been an accident on the road, and I knew I had to close out the paperwork for that one, the one I did today, and I didn't get home until like 6 anyway, so, or thereabouts. So keep coming back, y'all. Thanks for letting me share. I know this is a long one, but look up, aim up, rise up.